I don't have to be creative, you know what I mean? Not always.
Mm.
I I feel I don't know. That's interesting saying that. I don't know if I believe it. I say it because with kids, kids just are they're trying to be playful all the time. Like they're just being playful. They're just playful creatures. Like they're just playing. That is creativity in a very simple way. It's like that is like the purest form of creativity is just play. Like just go. And maybe like maybe actually this delves in I think to the idea of control as an adult. Like I think creative flow can always be happening. It's these ideas of how I do it or how I want to feel it that put constraints on it and maybe make it not work sometimes.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Going Out Looking In, the podcast where we're exploring the human experience through conscious conversations. My name is Maxi, I'm your host, and today we're exploring the world of photography. That is with New York-based photographer Collin Hughes. Collin has worked with some of the biggest brands of the world, such as Nike, Amazon, Tommy Hilfiger, and many more. And him and I go way back, in fact. We have a common friend, Daniel. Shout out to Daniel if you're listening to this, who he visited during high school. And I went to high school with Daniel, and I remember some photos on Facebook of that Collin took of his time in Germany. And for some reason, they are still present with me. The unique way in which Collin is capturing anything, for that matter, but also people in that specific instance, stood out to me. And it stood out to the degree that made me follow him ever since. And so I stayed up to date with what he was doing, and he was just getting started with his photography career, and he then, as he also will elaborate in the conversation, went into wedding photography and then commercial and editorial photography. But it's so distinct, the work that he's doing and putting out, the eye that he has for what he's capturing, that made me reach out to him to speak with him on the podcast. And this is one of these conversations where I have very little to hold on to. Like there's little material that I can find. There's not like 50 podcast interviews that Collin did already and that I can listen to. It's an intuition, it's a feeling that I have. Something is there, something worth exploring is in this conversation and behind the lens of these photos that Collin is taking. And so I was curious, who is this human behind? What is and who are his inspirations? What makes a great photo? What is actually photography? Like, can we use photography as an extension of our personality? And does it actually prohibit us to be in the moment? We all know the moments of concerts where we get our phones out and we try to memorize or like capture something and lock it inside of us by taking a photo. Like we were speaking about that as well. We were speaking about Collin becoming a father and how that influences his work, his curiosity, his creativity, his integrity. So there's a lot in this conversation. It's a testament to the magic that can unfold if two people meet with open hearts and curiosity and are willing and able to explore yeah, yet another layer of the human experience through, some different professions, like I'm doing the podcast, he's doing the photography. Like, are there maybe also intersections, in creating anything? What is creativity even? So, you get the drill. Like, these are the kind of patterns and topics that we discuss. I wish you so much fun with this one. It's been a while, I know. I'm back now in the saddle, but my intention with these conversations going forward is I don't want to, necessarily pump out like a weekly episode just to have one out. If I have something to say, if my guests have something to say, you'll find an episode. But I feel quality is much more important than the quantity. So yeah, thank you for being here. I wish you beautiful insights with this episode and myself and Collin Hughes. If you feel like it, you can quickly close your eyes and just like make sure that your feet are on the ground, so we can just arrive and ground ourselves and slow a little bit down. And take 3 breaths together, in through the nose and out through the mouth. So in and out, and in again, and out. And one more, in and out. Also would like to quickly say some words, bring some love and awareness into the space. Beautiful creation on this day. Please facilitate a loving connection between Collin and myself on these very busy days. Let us slow down and arrive. Come from a place of love, respect, and tenderness, of truth and authenticity. Guide our tongues so we can speak what needs to be said. We can hear what needs to be heard. May we move through this conversation with grace and remember that there is nothing to do. There is nowhere to go. It's just one moment at a time. And with that, we are grateful for what we have every day, what we get to experience, for the people that are in our lives. And with that gratefulness and gratitude and love, we move into the next couple of minutes or hours or however long this is going to last. Thank you. It's beautiful that you did that with me. Thank you.
Thanks, Maxi.
So, yeah, Collin, I mean, this has been, I don't know, subconsciously in the making, I feel like, for quite some while. I've been following your work for years, sometimes more, sometimes less, but, you always were in my Instagram feed, basically. And I started reading your newsletters. I started, sometimes, going a little bit deeper in the projects that you're doing and what I can watch from afar. And I was just always very inspired for some reason, for different reasons, I guess. Sometimes it was storytelling. Sometimes it was just like an ambience and an atmosphere and something that invoked in me. Sometimes it was the words that you were using to describe what you're working on. Sometimes it was you being a dad and sharing how that is for you, and just like the authentic snapshots that we get to see and witness from, from my experience, from the other side of the world, having not met you in person. So I feel like, this kind of relationship for me has been building, on several levels. And I just wanted to just start a little bit with your creative journey. Like, where you are now, that's just like a whole different dimension. And we have this common friend, Daniel, who you spent time with in Germany, and you called it formative years. So I'm excited to explore that. Like, how did this whole creative life of yours start? What are some memories that come up? What kind of stories can you share with us? Yeah, just opening up the space with that.
Wow. Where do I start? I don't know. Sometimes starting at the end is really useful, but when I get
Mm.
asked where I'm at right now, I don't always have words for that kind of thing. I mean, I think the creative life is really about wayfinding and seeking out like new experiences, and you're really just kind of noticing where you're at in any given moment is always relative and sort of different than the last. And yeah, so today I don't know where I'm at, honestly. I think I've had some really amazing experiences in the last, I mean, in the previous couple of months. And right now I'm maybe just taking stock of them. And usually, yeah, like when you talk about my writing, like writing has become sort of that like central sort of thing of kind of connecting all of these ideas and experiences and like creative outlets and things that I just love about life, and helping me kind of why are they all connected? How are they all connected? And you know, what am I finding in them that's just making me happy? And I haven't been able to write much
Mm.
recently, so I'm feeling a little like I'm just a little bit off lately. Where I'm at, I don't really know. Um, but earlier, it's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you also just like bringing family into this, and obviously that's like a very grounding sort of thing. Before this, I took my daughter or I was chaperoning a field trip with my daughter's class to a ramen restaurant. They're learning about Japan right now. She's 5, and it's a really beautiful thing to just like be able to go hang out in the day and see her with friends and talk to parents. So yeah, very nice thing to just lose myself in
Mm.
or find myself. I mean,
So,
fatherhood has definitely been a finding myself again experience.
what do you learn from her?
Mm, how hard it is to be a kid sometimes. How confusing it can be, actually, or like overwhelming. Just whatever it is that you just don't know about the world is like, or yourself, what you don't know about yourself, really. And I've learned a lot from her in terms of like just its spontaneousness. It's having fun with whatever it might be, even if it is confusing. Sometimes you can still run really fast and feel free. Like like sometimes I think kids just do. They're so in their body as an experience. They're just like taking in the world, and so really like the mind makes it difficult to understand things, but the body already knows what it wants. So I learned that I can just do things with my body, go for a walk, and that puts my mind at ease. Breathe. We did some breath work. Like those sorts of things are just very basic ways of, kind of just staying with the day and, staying in the flow of it all.
Right. So you mentioned that sometimes it is confusing to like that's what something that you learn from your daughter. How I was curious, like how do you notice the confusion in her world or with like with her perception? How does
Mm,
that manifest itself?
mm. I mean, you could say maybe it's confusion and curiosity. Like it's the oh,
I'm sorry. There's,
flood warning.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's flood warning. It's flood warning. it's flood. It's flood. Jesus. It's like a national emergency kind of thing that, like, although my phone is on silent, it comes through. I'm so sorry for that.
That's so funny. Life finds a way of
Yeah,
interrupting things, right? There it is.
that's it.
That's so funny.
Sorry. Go on. I'm with
Yes.
you.
Well, we're talking about curiosity and confusion, I think is the same. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. So with kids are always asking questions. Like that's a very big one. But then there's the emotional sides of things and, who am I in this experience or this thing that I'm learning about or excited about? And kids aren't really, I don't think they're thinking about identity in that way, but they're very much like informing an identity as they're going along. And so I noticed in my daughter, like, the questioning for sure. But then there's also the like some of the like I don't want to what are they? It's just like not tantrums. She's not like she just basically is melting down. There you go. That's it, like the meltdowns, the overstimulation or like the over like oh my god, that just happens all the time. Because they're needing to process certain things, like emotional things and also information from what's happening and it just they get overwhelmed. That's it. So and it's the confusion in that process of like what am I doing or how do I help myself, that as a parent I help her with, hey, you're just feeling this thing or you're going through this experience, it's going to be okay, like whatever. And then it's also the questioning, or the like she's asked very simple questions like why I don't know, why is the car hood shaped like that in the front of a car? Like why is it a square in the front of a car? And I'm like, oh, because there's an engine there. But then and she's like, but why? And like, or it's even bigger questions like, bomb, like what are bombs? Like what are
Mm.
these things? So you're dealing with a lot of these topics and things that you have to describe in a way that isn't maybe that doesn't invoke fear or or like you know whatever. um yeah, so I have long-winded ways of answering your questions if you're as you've noticed.
No, it's perfect. I love that. And so this is your second daughter. You have two children, right?
Yeah, I do. That though I'm talking about the older one, she's 5, the younger one is 3.
Right. And how did this experience change or influence your life?
Mm. I've always had an issue with control in my life and wanting things to be certain ways. And children made me much more aware that like that's just not how things work. Like my ideas of what things are and what I want them to be are really not very true to what how the world works. Um, and yeah, kids just help me let go a little bit of the need to, I thought that was like I tied those ideas up into intuition. Like that's my intuition telling me those things, but I think it's actually my mind or intuition is a felt thing. Um, we are naturally, I think, connected to each other in this way. Like you already have given quite a good story, and I want to explore that. But there's then, yeah. So kids just like have taught me to just embrace the felt now experience better or more willingly. Like that is what's true. That is where I'm going to figure out my life, so to speak.
Mm, mm,
Um,
right.
yeah. And with the creative process, they've also taught me that it's like I have to, it's just a thing that I have to be doing. Like with photography, it's just a thing that I do. Like I just enjoy doing this thing. And I don't know why sometimes, but I just enjoy it. And it's taught me a lot about bigger sort of, um, how do I say it? It's the lessons and the things that I've learned from photography have taken years and years for me to learn. Like I haven't, they're not something that you can learn quickly. Like, yes, there's like technical things and, stuff that you can learn with a camera or about the world even by observing it. But the lessons in them have take so much longer. And like some of the bodies of work I've made are only now just starting to teach me about the world in a way, like some of the deeper things that I see. Why do I see this thing? Why do I feel so pulled to make this thing? Like, what is this, or why did I feel so like it was so necessary to do this? Like, what is the connection to this thing for me? I don't know. Or, and so I'm just learning a lot about those sorts of things and how I fit in the world through photography. And kids have taught me to just sort of like be much more open to that experience. And they've sort of led me to a lot of those revelations.
Right. Yeah, potentially going back to those to the children later on. I love talking about family and how that influences us as humans, like to be responsible for other humans and for a community, a chosen community. Let it be family, let it be friends, let it be whatever the community or the container is, that is larger than ourselves, what that does to us, as men, as women, as children, when we are in a co-creation, that is, I feel like it's a very potent place to explore. But you mentioned something that I need to and want to dig deeper into, which is the lessons of photography. Um, so you mentioned like technical aspects, and I understand that perfectly. Like, I've been in front of the camera many times, and therefore been working with people behind the camera many times. So that brings along, some technical aspects of things, and I understand that, and that makes all perfect sense. And there's a lot of things you can do. However, the greatest individuals that I get to work with were more people who, they used knowledge, technical knowledge, but then it was them really leveraging that and bringing in their creativity and using the device as an extension of their inner intuition and creativity, and that made the work beautiful at the end of the day. But that's my experience. I'm curious about your experience. Like, what are those lessons that you were speaking about?
Hmm. I think you kind of said it at the very end about just like, where is my creativity in that puzzle of the thing that I'm doing? Like you at a certain point, you've used the camera so many times that it's an extension of yourself. You're just experiencing the world through another method, and it becomes much more that it's a much more like, I feel like it's a much more natural process in that way. I would say like more effortless process. Like it's just sort of happening. And because of that, you're much more open to the ideas and the things that you're seeing. And it's just an ongoing sort of thing. I think like a body of work that I worked on for like 6 or 7 years, I didn't really know people are like, why do you keep going back and doing this? I basically rode a ferry back and forth like hundreds of times, um, just to photograph people. And I was like, well, I grew up on a lake and I love being near water, and New York City is stressful. Being on the water is beautiful. Like, it just helped me. I just feel much more at peace. That's all. It's just, I'm happier there. I don't know. I didn't really have an answer in some ways. And really, it was like, I didn't feel connected to New York City after living here for a decade. I didn't feel like I had a deep understanding of why I even live here. I didn't feel like this was the place that I want to be or I belong in. And so instead of to go find that kind of feeling, I basically just went to a place up in the city that I felt connected to, the water, and spent a lot of time there. And I realized that I was like, oh, I've just felt disconnected from the world around me for years. I didn't feel like I belonged here. And I want to feel like I belong. So photography was my way of sort of the way I photograph the people, for example. Like, I would never get really too close. There are times where I would, but I'm not asking for portraits. I'm not asking to like be in someone's life. I'm really just trying to capture the thing without disturbing it. I want it to just be there. And I find it so beautiful that this thing exists and I can be a part of it without changing it, um, like it's a beautiful place. You're on the water. If you ever been on the water, at 3 in the afternoon while everyone's still in the office, but the light is amazing. It's just like a very calm boat
Mm.
ride, not something you get in New York City very often. Like it's just extremely surreal in some ways. Um, and the colors are beautiful. Like I just kept going back and forth because why wouldn't I? What a like it's lovely. So yeah, I
Mm.
think um photography, like the way I photograph these people, like I wouldn't get close because I didn't want to disturb that thing. So all this work that I made is pictures of people and this space as it is, undisturbed. Like, people sleeping, people being on their phones, people I don't, talking to each other, whatever, looking out the window. And it's just sort of like the way I come at things, I have a sort of like longing for the world, a longing for like beautiful things, beautiful experiences, these just the flowing nature of the world. Like I love Miyazaki films because they're so like sweet and simple, and there is a longing in them. The way the landscapes, the clouds specifically, like they're all so gorgeous. And yeah, just like I love that sort of um I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of my attachment to the world. That's how I perceive it in some ways. It can be a love song quite often, and so the work is really just that. I mean, it's also a very languid, flowing feel because it's on the water. It's a boat ride. Um, so yeah, the people in New York City are also like it's just a multitude of different things and it helped me by photographing people this way, by doing this thing. It helped me sort of like soften my ideas of what this place is, what it can offer. It made me feel more like in love with it, if you will. um yeah, it just made me feel more
Mm.
connected to this place and what it could be because I only know little pieces of it, what I see every day and what I've experienced, and there's more. Yeah, New York was it was a really hard place for me to live for a while.
Mm. So this project, like this piece of work that you're talking about on the ferry, and I remember and I recall those pictures, and this atmosphere. It's more like I said in the beginning, it's a feeling. Like when I think of these photos, I get a feeling, and I get the feeling that I'm seeing the world, and this is so beautiful with photography. I'm seeing the world through how you see the world, through your lens, metaphorically, but
Mm,
also, physically. So it's literally like the device you're looking through, the lens that you chose for these pictures. And yeah, I got a very like documentary kind of vibe, like a but at the same time, they felt sometimes, like you say, the use of the lightning in those photos was sometimes so perfect as it was studio lit. Like it's incredible. Like, and but this is also like obviously your knowledge of how to use a camera and the light and the motive and how to arrange the two um, into one composition. So where am I getting with this? Um, I wanted to say that um, that was. I wanted to ask if was that that was a self initiated project that you basically that you initiated in order for you to arrive in New York. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that how it was, or were you
uh,
like commissioned to do this?
no, this is something that I did because I just enjoyed doing it. Like I went and rode the ferry one day and I had my camera with me and I made a few images. I was like, oh wow, these are really fun. Like these are really fun images. And being on the water, I don't know. It's just like, oh, I found something that I want to photograph and I want to follow. I want to just see what's here. And I ended up doing it for years. Like I started it in 2016 in like October, I think, or no, September, and I just kept going back. Different times of the day, all different seasons. Yeah, it was just something that I loved
Mm.
to do. And I also, at the time, I wasn't really in love with photography anymore. It was kind of a tumultuous relationship. There's like times that I enjoy doing it or things I like, but I was also like, I kind of want to give it up and do something else, like, which is, it's a
Yeah.
very silly thing, I think. Yeah. Uh, so yeah, it's a self-initiated project, but I kept doing it because I just enjoyed doing it. It wasn't because I noticed what it was right away or what this thing was. It was just like, oh, I can make really nice photos out of this thing. And then, 6 years later, I realized that, I hated New York. I hated photography. I wasn't happy. Like I didn't have kids yet too. I didn't feel connected to this place and I was confused. Taking it back to the beginning, like I was just confused but curious still, and I wanted this helped me sort out what that was. It's just
Mm.
like place in the world kind of thing. I just want to feel like I know where I'm at. Sometimes it helps me.
Right. So speak a little bit about where you're at right now in this process.
mm, where am I at? I don't know. I'm tired, I think. I went to Japan for 2 weeks. And jet lag really got me on the way back from being home the last
Right.
week. So, and that trip was kind of intense. It was really fun. I saw some incredible things and I made some really great work, just exhausting. Um, and I find myself feeling a little bit like lonely and sort of drained from the process. Um, also with work, like I do commercial photography as well, and I direct, and those sorts of things are like really busy right now. So I'm talking to lots of people, and I just don't have time to write, and I don't have, it's a balance. I've got to make some more time for all my other work. Um, so yeah, I'm kind of I'm just in a, I'm in a rocky space right now, doing lots of different things, not focusing on one real thing yet.
Right. And what is it that you want to be doing?
I want to spend one day doing just one thing. Like I just want to do one thing in a day, and that's the expectation. Like just one thing.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because if I have nothing to do, then, it's kind of, whatever. But if I have one thing that I kind of like focus, but I don't stress, and it's really nice, it's purposeful enough with, but my life is just
Right.
chaotic. I have 2 young kids and I have all these things that I enjoy doing. Like I'm very happy, honestly. I'm very lucky.
Mm. Right. Um. So yeah, there's many places we can go with this. Um.
I want to ask I want to
um.
ask you because it goes all the way back to like years ago, like through Daniel, which you had mentioned earlier, and
Mm-hmm.
I've I haven't talked to Daniel, like we maybe text a couple times a year, but yeah, that formative experience, like maybe we can take it back to that.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, how do you know Daniel again? Like how did you come into his world?
I I went. Yeah. I went to high school with him basically, and
Wait,
there
you
was
were
a short but very. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, go ahead. You can keep talking.
Okay. So I went to high school with him, and it was a short but very sweet and like intense period of time where we like got closer connected. Like it was actually during the time shortly after he was done with his degree, or when he like left high school and before he went to the States, we were quite in a lot of contact. And he's like a couple of years older than me, so he was always like somebody I looked up to, and I was very inspired by his dedication to his path and the journey that he was on. And I always perceived him as a very intelligent, at that time, very like young, ambitious young man. And he just like saw a lot of things in the world, and that I haven't seen yet at that time. And so I don't know, he was just a source of inspiration for me. And then, after he went to the States, things changed, obviously, and we didn't get to see each other in person anymore. And now I haven't really talked to him in a couple of years. Yeah, in a big chunk of time. But it's one of those things where, I just remember I actually even remember, I don't know why, it's weird. Sometimes you remember random things very clearly. And I remember even like a photo series that you did with him. Like you were, I think, visiting, and there were like some photos that you took of him and a group of friends of his. And I was just like, who made those photos? There were a couple of black and white ones, couple of color ones, and I was like, yeah, those are really like those are capturing people like very authentically, like within what they are doing in that moment, and without them noticing that you are like taking a photo of them. And I love that kind of work, so that stood out to me, and like that's and then I somehow connected like, okay, this is, I think, this is this Collin guy from the US. And so I followed you, and since then I even had like this, like I told you, like on and off relationship with like your work, where I just like, I don't know, followed all of the different stages and commercial photography that you've been doing, and like then this more like atmospheric sort of ambience stuff that now I found out is self-initiated, and it's not really sort of like it wasn't like put on you. You were like, no, I want to be doing this, and I feel like also it shows. And so yeah, but that's a different thing. Like this is the story with Daniel. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's so fun that you bring the photos up from that. I remember, I know exactly which photos you're talking about, but um, wow, very fun. It's like fun how photography can reach people like that. It can be a connection because we're seeing the same thing in our minds and we're talking about the same things. And you weren't even there, but you understand it, I think, in that way. You have your own, yeah, it's just, you also know, the people in the photos. So you just, um, yeah, it's really beautiful to share that kind of history, I think, like a visual history.
Mm. So what was your experience like with him and during this time?
He, I, so this is 2005. I was 15, and my mom, I had been studying German in high school for a few years, and my teacher was like, I think you would enjoy doing this program. It was an exchange program. I went into it, kind of, I, w- I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it right away. And I eventually was like, okay, yes, I want to do this. And I got paired up with Daniel and his family. And, I'm like an oldest sibling by many years. And I just felt kind of isolated at that time in my life. And he ended up kind of feeling like a brother that I had always wanted to feel, or like a best friend. Like all of a sudden here I have someone who I can relate with, who I'm also inspired by, his ambition, his openness, his like sense of purpose with things. And his family too, like his mom and dad are all like this very sweet people that just welcomed me into their home, and were also hard on me in like the ways that worked for me, you know, like they just knew who I
Mm.
was or what I needed. Um, yeah, it was a very like there's a lot of reciprocity in the relationships between our families and each other, and um, it was just really fun to like learn through each other in that way. Like coming to Germany for that much time, like learning. the language that deeply. Like it just gave me a sense of like freedom in the world at the time when I was feeling extremely like pressured and like kind of locked in, trapped by my upbringing and my, hometown and all these things that we go through. And it was like it just gave me like it showed me who I was in a lot of ways. Like here I am in front of people that I've never met before, that I'm speaking a different language with before. It just, yeah, you get to see, you just learn a lot about yourself in those experiences. And as a 15-year-old needing some sort needing connection with himself at that time, like what better experience? And Daniel was like, the perfect sort of mirror of myself in that way, of things that I want to see in myself or things that I believe about myself that I want to be. And then also, who am I that I don't know? We got to do a lot of experiences together that I'd never done before, that scared me, that were exciting or, sad. It was so, it blew my mind that I could have that kind of experience at that age. So yeah, Daniel and his family gave me like a home in a way that I needed at that time.
Very beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And wow, I'm also like surprised that you were only 15. And so I'm like I'm taking from that like you went there with your camera, that you had that already with you. You took those photos that we're speaking about. Like when did you start like taking photos actually?
I guess I started making some photos basically around that time. The photos that I think we saw or that we were talking about came a couple years later when I went to Europe to visit Daniel again, I think in like 2008, maybe, or 2009. So, but going the first time was, a little point and shoot. My family's camera that, I was just like, it was really fun. I had been using it around my hometown at the time, and I don't know, bringing it there like gave me a chance to like tell a story and like what's happening. Like, email mom, mom, look, this is what I got to do. She's like, it was just a really fun way to communicate. Like, it's just nice to be able to send photos. I didn't have a lot of words back then. I didn't know how to talk, so just sending photos was good. Um, yeah, so that was when. And I started making photos at that time, and it was really Gailey, Daniel's dad or Daniel's mom was also like, "Oh, do you have the auga? Do you have the auga?" Like, and I was like, "Oh, really?" So I was like, "I can't believe." I'm like, oh, I guess, like, yeah, I like this photo, fun. Yeah, and I came back and I just kept, I kept with it. It was a fun way to just like, you know, be in touch with what was happening in front of me.
Right. Um, what happened after? Like, how did this photography thing like evolve then from that point in time?
I was really into music in high school, and I wanted to be in a metal band, and I was for a few months, but I wasn't very good at it. Um, so I started taking photos of bands, like going to shows and taking photos of bands, and that kind of took off for me while I was in university. Just I learned, I eventually started like touring with bands sometimes, or like going to Warp Tour and taking portraits of bands, trying to shoot for, magazines or things, which made me no money. And I was so tired because I was an architecture student at the time, and, just not making money and not sleeping. It was just a bad combo. Um, I needed some help. A friend of mine at the time like offered to have me help him shoot weddings, which kind of kickstarted a wedding photography career for a few years. While I got me sort of a footing financially, and also just like, how do I do this thing that I love doing and meet people? It really opened me up. It kind of took me back to Germany in a lot of ways, my exchange experience, and just being open to new experiences and reading the room, if you will. What's exciting to me? What do I, it just be like doing photography and made me happy, and it almost didn't matter. People were like, wedding photography, whoa, like that, I could never do that. Or, why are you doing that? Ugh. And you're just like, I don't know. It's just I have to learn. I have a lot to learn, and I don't really know what it is that I'm trying to learn. But I need to also provide for myself, put myself through school. I have to take care of myself somehow, and this all fits. So, yeah, I found it kind of a calling in a way to shoot wedding photography. It just was like, this is meaningful to me. Um, yeah, I don't know. Commercial photography came after that, after I moved to New York, which I did when I graduated. So it's a long and winding tale.
So you finished the architectural studies degree?
Yeah, in 2011 is when I graduated.
Mm. And how does and did that influence your work?
Um, Materials and light are, you know, they change everything. They show us a lot of different like ways of. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I'm gonna start over. I think architecture taught me about just a spatial sense of things around us. How do I feel in these things? Oh, I feel different in this room versus this room. Why? And I just noted, I was always noticing light and how it played. And architecture is really just like the shaping of light for an experience. Crafting of materials and like, to create a final sculpture that's experienced. And photography, I always sensed there's like the limitation in it that's two dimensional, but I feel an experience in a photograph in ways, like I'm experiencing something, and with the camera as an extension, like we're shaping this image, and I love the sort of challenge of a two-dimensional thing being able to communicate a four-dimensional basically experience. Um, it doesn't communicate my history, but there's a felt thing in it, and architecture just taught me about that sort of space. What is that space? And how do I read space? How do I compose? How do I light? What do I want this thing to feel? So yeah, I would say, yeah, architecture also taught me, yeah, there's just a rigor with it. The like you're iterating, like you're making different ways of experiencing photography, for example. Like, the same thing that you felt in the camera that then came out in the image that then gets printed, noticing how it changes in those different modalities. It's yeah, I guess it taught me a lot about process.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like it shows in your work. Like, and it's funny. This is something that came to me in the preparation for this podcast. So this is like information that I didn't know. I didn't know that you had a background in architecture, and then I did the preparation, and then I read it, and then I was like, and then it made click, and it made a lot of sense for some reason, because the way that you are shooting buildings, the way that you are shooting, yeah, like anything really, like I can't even describe it, like the shapes also, I feel like, especially when it's interior. No, I cannot even say if it's only interior, but I have like some photos in mind from you, where the objects are very, like, it's a simple setup, but like you say, the composition of it within a room is very specific, and it makes me as a recipient feel a certain way. And it's funny, it's like a fingerprint. Like, without even reading your name in my Instagram feed, usually I'm able to tell which photo is yours. And that's
Sweet.
and that's great, I feel like.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I love that you say it's like a fingerprint. I mean, that's what I think every photographer is trying to like know what their thing is. And I mean, I've never really had a thing in a way. Like, you're telling me I have a thing and I believe you because we've been talking about it, but it's like when you talk about genres of photography, like, oh, what do you like to shoot? I shoot interiors, I shoot weddings, I shoot people. I don't really know. That's not a quick answer for me, as you can tell. Like, it's just, um, I've been trying. I've been trying for years to give a quick answer, and I'm almost there. I promise.
Well, you don't. Well, if if it's not what you're doing, then it's not what you're doing, and I feel like you can say that with conviction and with
Oh yeah.
confidence, and I feel like it's um again something that I was just like when you were speaking about wedding photography, in my head it's just like if I imagined you as a wedding photographer, um it would still be you taking those photos. Like it would still have your fingerprint on it. And um, I guess putting that in a question is like across all of those different genres of photography and things that like objects or sceneries that you can shoot. What are you looking for in any photo that you're taking? Is there something? Is there like some sort of process? Is there something you are looking for? Something you are in like you're striving towards?
I can't answer the question in a way. I would say that it's close to how do you know something tastes right, or how do you know something sounds right? Like
Right.
it's the combination of experience uh, in the world, the things that I've learned and seen, then what it is that am currently seeing from a specific sort of angle or specific kind of time, or it's just there. It's I think it's just the seeing myself in the world. Maybe I want to believe that it's like the world is just reflecting us back at ourselves most of the time, in fact, all the time. Um, and I'm just seeing a piece of myself that feels familiar. That's what I would say the photograph is. Like, there's a piece of this thing. I don't know what it is, but I resonate with it. I feel called to it, or I was brought to it. Here I am, and it looks amazing. This is I want to make an image of this. Um, yeah, that's how I relate that.
So it's all right. So it feels right for you in that moment.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it just feels right. That's it. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Mm.
I've been doing this thing recently because I was traveling and shooting. I was shooting a lot, but there's when I'm more recently, specifically actually in the project shooting on the ferry, I learned I learned how to like say no to taking a photo or making a photo. You want to say like I see this image, I want to make it. I'm not going to make it though because I've either made an image like it, or I've already made enough, or I'm just happy to experience it. Like I see it here in front of me, and that's enough.
Yes. 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 That's very interesting. Let's stay with that for a second because that is the concert. That's like the phone pulling out on at the concert, and or this is like the sun going. This is the sun going down, sort of like phone out. This is all of these situations that all of us know. It's sort of like something is arising. This sort of like need to capture this moment on this device, but what is the intention behind it? It's like we want to like fully take it in, right? And that's why we have this now. We have this tool, the phone, which allows us to capture this moment, which I guess the feeling for me, or like the thinking, it's more like a thinking for me, is like if I'm taking a photo of this thing, it'll last a long, like it'll last a more profound um, imprint on me, on my soul, and I'm able to take it in even more. Something like that. I don't know. Which we know, and I mean, for me, through spiritual practices and contemplation and meditation, I've come to realize that this is sort of like it's a trap, it's a trap because the thing that I'm doing is actually preventing me from actually experiencing life to the fullest. Now, at the same time, I feel like there is, especially for someone like you who is doing this as a profession and who has mastered this, like you were saying, as an extension of you, so much to the extent that I guess I would ask you now, is it a possibility for you taking photos? Like, is that maybe even allowing you to be fully present with the situation? Or is it still only possible if you are not looking through the lens of a camera and just looking at the scenery?
Mm. I think I understood the question. You're
Sorry.
asking, is it possible to be present and make the image?
Yes.
Uh, Kind of, no. I mean, yes, you can. I want to say that I can because when I was on the ferry, I'm being so sensitive to what's around me. Is anyone watching? Is this person going to notice me? Am I like I'm just trying to create zero frequencies that like the camera is so polarizing. So I I'm trying to I'm like holding that line of like just witnessing the thing without and then bringing a camera to just make the image. Like I don't go and I like and then walk away. I kind of I walk up and down the boat, and when I see something, sometimes I'll like come double back around and find a way to sit near them and make the photo, or like so there's an experience where I don't know, even that, like I'm being fully present with what's happening inside that window of that person's world. I'm like entering their field of view, and I need to find a way to not disturb it. Like I'm just a part of the whole thing. So, I mean, some people, when people are sleeping, it's fine. You can get close, but or even or even being on the phone for that matter. Yeah, like people being on their phone is really crazy. You notice how like disconnected people are just being on a screen. So yeah, I would say to answer the question, yes, I do think it's possible to be fully present and make the image. Um, yeah.
But then what I'm hearing is you still have moments where you rose to a level of consciousness and awareness where you then proactively say, no, I don't want to take this photo. I rather just be with the moment. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
Yeah, because it gives me that chance then to consider like why did I even respond to this in the first place? Like where did this intent, where did this like motion come into place? Like what, and then what informed it? Like what did I see? What was this thing? And yeah, I'm just really curious about myself really in this world because there are so many pieces of myself or things that I just don't know about who I am, which is crazy to me because I'm in it every day. And I think we all feel that we are all experiencing that thing, and I'm just hyper aware of it because of my kids going through the same thing. Um, and I'm just there's just like a wealth of things to learn from yourself every day. And I'm learning through other people, and that's helping me create more lasting friendships and connections and just making me feel like it doesn't, to move this further, like New York now feels home to me in that way, just because I'm more invested in who the people are around me, because I'm trying to learn about myself in this place that's around me. And these people are also experiencing the same things quite often and learning new ways of helping myself or new ways of inspiring myself or whatever is that has been kind of the name of the game since becoming a parent. It's just been, yeah, that process.
Right. Um, so you were bringing up New York now that was part of this conversation now for a couple of times. So what I'm picking up on, like you're feeling better now, where you're at with your relationship to the city, where you're at with that.
Yeah, just not. I don't complain about it as much anymore. I complain about it as there's a couple things like New York is what it is. Can't change it. Never could. I need to learn how to accept it. That's just my own. That's my own thing. Um, I I think I'm a little tired from New York City as a process. I don't want to put all of this on New York. Of course, it's not like I can't blame a city for my problems fully. It's just I think New York has this way of like it feels like you're in a Bikram yoga studio room. Like everything you do is just a little bit more intense or heightened, like waking up, just walking down to the corner of the street. You can just sit still in your house and things are happening to you in New York City. So, and I need a little bit more space and time. I want to be left alone or hibernate in a way. And, I'm just making peace with that thing in New York right now as often as I can. It's just not the time for peace for me.
Right. So what would be a place for you to feel more aligned? Is there such a place?
No, I mean, yes, it's a balance, right? I think in the end of the day, like, we all need time away from a city as much as we need time in the city, or, some people need more than others. There's just, because I'm so like sensitive to space around me from, talking about photography and how I'm reading space, uh, New York City just has a lot of things to feel. And yeah, I just want a little bit more of a balance. I've been getting that balance through leaving the city as often as I can, given, family and, work constraints. But yeah, there, I don't think the place fully exists. It's just trade-offs.
Right. Right. Yeah, actually,
Sorry.
yeah. I personally have never been. I actually just went to the U.S. Last October, and I traveled across the whole country from west to east. But to make it up to New York would have been, yeah, a major extension of the trip, and I couldn't fit it into the timeline. But from what I'm hearing and seeing from the outside, it looks like a yeah, it's an interesting place, isn't it?
Sure
Um,
is. You're living
I
in
don't
southern
know.
Germany, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm living in Bavaria, so I'm living right next to the mountains, and I chose a very slow and a very different life to how it was just 1, 2, 3 years ago. I mean, I always knew that I need to be connected to nature in the sense of like the proximity to it and deep nature. So places where you can go to without without any human noise, if that makes sense. So there will be some places, right, in nature where you can still, you still hear traffic or you still hear some sort of like construction site. You hear some human elements in the sonic environment, even though your actual environment is nature. So I guess there's like sort of degrees of how deep you are into nature, and I'm getting more and more sensitive to these layers, and I'm trying to immerse myself and also like locate myself physically and live in spaces that are closer to that full and deep depth of nature, because I just, on so many levels, like my nervous system, I feel like my ability to channel things, like to open myself up to whatever you want to call this force that comes through me, like, and that helps me to create things in this world, is much greater when I'm exposed to these to deep nature, basically. So I pretty rigidly and pretty with much sort of like grit and I don't know, like I put a lot of effort into facilitating an environment where this is now my reality. But, you know, there's different strokes for different folks. And I know people who, you know, they need something nourishes them in a city, you know, and in a more fast-paced environment and with more external stimuli. And I don't judge that. I just reached the conclusion that for me, I'm craving something different. Yeah.
Man, I feel you so much on that. I definitely am happy that you found it, because I think the way you frame it in terms of just what you're channeling, what you're working through in your own life, like to have the right space to do it. It can be everything in a way, for who you are and your well-being in this world. And I think just like, I'm really happy that you get to have it, because I want it. I want that. I'm learning to find it despite the difficulty, is I think where I'm coming from. It's like New York isn't really where I love to be or where I feel most myself, but I'm learning through my family that I'm creating, and these things that I love, that I can find at least pieces of it that I love, and appreciate them for what they are right now. And getting even maybe a better sense of where do I need to be, or where do I want to go, where would be right for me in that capacity. So I know we're getting closer. It's just, the whole family thing, like I can't just like pick up and move anymore, which is something that I probably would have done. Well, I did do that actually. But now I'm learning to I have to be really intentional and, make better decisions for, the people around me.
Yep. Yeah. I hear you loud and
So
clear.
I think it's inspiring to hear you talk about it in that way, like that you find it. Because I know, you know what I mean? Like, I know that where my place is out there in the world somewhere is where I will feel it eventually. It exists right now. But you inspire me to find that thing, because like what you're making with your podcast, like in making, opening these spaces for people to, learn, speak about themselves, and, connecting on something bigger is, we all need those kinds of spaces in our lives, from our friends and family. So I love that you have, that you're doing that. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I received that, and it's one of those moments again in the podcast where, like, it's literally what we are speaking about. Like, without nature, I wouldn't have the podcast, because nature was the conduit and the vehicle that allowed me to share what I shared and to open this space up. That's why it's called going out, looking in, because I was physically going out, also mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I was going out into the world, into nature, and then I was looking inside what's present for me, and that was what I was sharing in those first couple of solo episodes, and then it turned into an interview podcast, but the spirit of that carries into these conversations. And so that's why I was saying at the very beginning to you, like, it doesn't have to do something with me as a person, with my story, with my ego. I mean, sometimes obviously my ego plays a role, but most of the time I'm trying to be as pure as I can. And that's also, it shows on on many different levels. Like, how do I prepare? Do I have an agenda? Do I want to feed the algorithm, and do I want to extract a certain thing out of a person, or like, do I just want to really be with them, and see what's arising in the moment? And I feel like that intention, that changes the trajectory of this project, and also makes you as a guest feel a certain way, in a different way, than potentially other places where you are being asked questions, where it more feels probably like an interview.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's the way you kind of talked about it at the beginning in the intro of this, and now talking about it, it reminds me when I started doing wedding photography, like started getting my own weddings. I had to meet with these couples before they got married or before they did the whole thing to do the contractual thing, and just I wanted to have like a getting to know them before we signed anything, because weddings are intimate experiences. Uh, and I always felt like if there was a good thing going on in the thing, like if I could just show up authentically and be open to who they might be, like that's where, okay, it's a working relationship, but I'm also connecting with them and their families in a deeper way. And I want to do my best to have integrity in the work that I'm making, because I do love this thing and I care about the world, and I care about these people, um, in this at least basic human way. um, and yeah, it just, at that time I had to like prep myself sometimes, like in the car before I'd go in, to be like, hey, I want to show up here. I don't like, I'm coming from stressful things. I don't know what was happening before, but every time I'm in the car, I would essentially just prep myself about, why am I doing this thing? It seems confusing right now. I don't know, but I put myself here, and I'm trying to trust the process. I want to, it's kind of like a prayer, I just help me do the best things for myself, to speak to these people with, genuine curiosity, and, be open to them, even if I don't feel like there's a good connection or this is going to work out. Like, how can we, I just want to be open. At least I want to be kind. And everyone, I think we all want that from other people as often as we can get it, I would say. Um, so yeah, that's what I love that you're talking about that in your podcast, that you're opening it up in those ways, letting it happen, so to speak. Like, it's nice to have agendas sometimes for expectations or whatever, but the beauty is found in the conversation and the experience together. We're both informing this thing together. That's so much more interesting than just what I might have in mind.
Yes. Yes, I agree. 1,000%. You mentioned integrity, and you mentioned that now in this conversation, and I read about this in a piece that you wrote. I wanted to ask you, what does integrity mean for you as a value in your life?
Hmm. Integrity to me means the commitment to holding the things in my life together in my awareness, to not forget what's important to me. Who am I? My identity, where I come from. Integrity means I can only find that feeling by being connected to the things that are a part of my life, my children, my work, my partner, the people that have helped me get here. I recognize those things, or try to, as often as I can, because I that's who that is who I really am. That tells me where I kind of am in the world. Um, Integrity is, an altruistic sort of idea that, uh, you know, I don't know. It's just that I feel like I discovered what integrity meant after my first daughter was born, and we named her Ren, Ren. It's uh, the character in Chinese, as I understand it, is male, female radicals together in one character, symbolizing humanity, basically. It's a character for humanity. But Confucius had it, it was, I think I've had it explained as the good feeling that you get from being altruistic. That is what Ren means. So the character, the thing, Ren, is a feeling, not a concept in a way. It's not uh, an idea, it's a feeling. And when I had never had a word for that feeling before. Um, yeah, so I've learned about integrity through my kids in that way, through, just, yeah, that's, I don't know how else to say it. I think I've said it, but
Does it, and if so, how does it affect your work?
I I've always been like obsessed with the patterns between things, like finding abstract sort of connections across different things. And, you know, I have learned that writing is actually the deeper process of me making my own work. Like going out and making photos is part of it, yes. But I think the deeper work, the part that kind of holds it together, is actually writing because
Mm.
it's when I'm writing, I'm listening, I'm reading what I am saying, and I'm speaking what I'm saying, and I'm putting words to feelings that I have already experienced or maybe I forgot about. And that has changed my work in these ways of like teasing out different, like just these different ideas about why I do what I do. Like the meaning thing. Like everything is meaningful, but why is this meaningful to me? And yeah, teasing out that I've learned like integrity and learning about that through just the day in, day out of being a parent. I've learned then through writing. And that has changed my entire practice around like what do like the answer to what do I do today? So it really is sometimes just you just need to write something, like write something down. Um,
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about, is there is there like a creative process you follow? Is there something you do repeatedly, or is it different every time?
I'm having a hard time putting bounds on myself or expectations, like or to like do something every day. Um, with at least the creative process. That's the hardest part. Like, do I write every day, or do I do yoga every day, or do I meditate every day? I find that it's I a couple of times a week each of those things, and it's whatever feels right for that time.
Mm, right. So, given a scenario where you are, and we were speaking about inspiration coming down, being a clear channel, and immersing yourself in whatever external space that you need to be in, um, like what is something you would do if you notice that not as much creative flow is coming through you? How do you clear the vessel?
Hmm. Um, go to the beach, um, like very close by, not very far. So, in general, though, I think like just leaving the city helps me clear my mind. Um, writing, uh, yoga can help sometimes, at least just to get moving. Um, yeah, there's a lot of I think I found like a lot of ways of kind of doing it. Honestly, hanging out with my kids quite often, or like right now they're at school, but when they come home at the end of the day, or or in the morning, like just doing that, being that person helps just take me out of the creative space. There's less pressure on it. Um, and then when I'm in dad mode, I'm like, whoa, you're just off today. It's fine. Don't worry about it. You'll be creative tomorrow or something.
Mm.
Like it's not, I, creativity can't always be flowing unless you have, the setup for it. And even sometimes like you just don't feel it, I think. I mean, it's like mood swings. Like sometimes I feel it, sometimes I don't. Um, like even with photography, like that's part of the difficulty with photography that I had years ago. I was talking about is I had mood swings with it. Sometimes I'd really love it, and then I'd hate it. And if I hated it for a long time, well, then I guess I had to change something. I don't know, I'd sell a camera and buy a different camera, or like I'd, buy a new lens or try a different format, or just like find something different about it that I don't know yet. So at least I'm learning something new in that time. Um, I don't have to be creative. You know what I mean? Not always.
Mm.
I I feel, I don't know. That's interesting saying that. I don't know if I believe it. I say it because with kids, kids just are they're trying to be playful all the time. Like they're just being playful. They're just playful creatures. Like they're just playing. That is creativity in a very simple way. It's like that is like the purest form of creativity is just playing. Like just go. And maybe, like maybe actually this delves in, I think, to the idea of control as an adult. Like I think creative flow can always be happening. It's these ideas of how I do it or how I want to feel it that put constraints on it and maybe make it not work sometimes.
Yep.
So again, delving into my issues with wanting it to be a certain way, like that actually was diluting my creative flow, I don't know, that feeling of flow, freedom, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it comes back to, I guess we have to, if we were to delve deeper into this, like it would require a definition of creativity, and I feel
Ah.
like at least in this conversation, subconsciously, and I do this all the time, I start making up I will have this vision of what I consider to be creative and what I consider to be creativity, you know? And really what changed that for me fundamentally was like Rick Rubin. I'm sure you're you know, like his
Mm-hmm.
concept and his books and like all of everything that he published recently, like it's like this way of living, right? And it's much bigger than the work that we're doing as a photographer, or like for me as a singer or musician or whatever, or like a podcaster, It's like these are like everything is an invitation to be creative, and there is no, at least it's how I see it now, there's no beginning or end to my creativity, no process where it starts and where it ends, or something that is creative or not. Like, as soon as I'm doing something, the way that I'm just doing it, by it coming through me, is so individual that it cannot be replicated, and therefore it is unique, and therefore it is creative to some degree. And yeah, I don't know, it just, I, I feel like this is a beautiful definition of creativity, but that's just mine. Like, how would you define it?
Um, I creativity is a creativity is a journey, or I think it's like it creativity does not have a beginning or an end. Creativity is a river then. Like we talk about it as flow, and I think the way you said everything is an invitation to be creative is talking about the same thing in that way. Uh, yeah, that's enough. I don't have to say it again. You already said it, and I think that's yeah. I mean, I think being creative really is just like a part of the living experience. Like you are everything is an opportunity to be creative or have fun. And I talk about ways of finding myself in the world, like about making an image. I'm just seeing a piece of myself, and some people would be like, "Oh, that's so creative." And I think they're right. Like it is creative thinking, I think, in that way, but I don't find it to be like a creative thought. I find it to be like a human experience of like, how are we experiencing the world? And I think the basic sort of thing of it is like, who am I right now? Who am I? Who am I? Like, who am I? You're different every minute, every hour, every day. You are changing and growing. Who am I? Who am I? I'm seeing this thing. What does that say about me? Like, I think we're just taking in information and finding out how to relate to it. And being creative is, I think, about feeling free and open to that idea, the possibility that, you know, I don't know, I'll find myself in everything in the world.
Yeah, something is coming up regarding the creativity part and piece, what we are speaking about now, and what we just spoke about with the integrity and work that, we sometimes engage with, or things in the world that we engage with that may not fully represent our internal flow and how aligned it makes us feel. I'm thinking potentially about not self-initiated projects, things that we feel like we need to do. How is it for you with that? Like, will there be pieces of work you're doing, pieces of creativity that you are interacting with that feel more aligned than others?
Yes, yes, yeah, definitely. Like, yes, there's always, I can't tell sometimes what the difference between like excitement and distraction in a way, or like, is this a distraction or is this an opportunity? I don't know. What is it? I'm not sure what the word is, but do you know what I mean? Like, how do you
With
choose what to do with your time? How do you know? And I think more often than not right now as a parent, it's just like it's really hard for me to know like I can't always do the thing I want to do. I can't always do what's right for me. I have to do other things. Um, Sometimes I can, and honestly, I think I have a lot of opportunity to do what I want for myself. I don't want it to come across that I don't. But yeah, you make hard choices sometimes with like it's just part of how it goes, right?
and if we narrow it down a little bit more, because like I totally understand it, and I mean, in the family context, I feel like it's a beautiful burden as well. I don't even have children yet, but just I guess the overarching theme of taking responsibility for more than just yourself, and also going out of this me kind of situation. I guess there is great, at least for me, I felt like there's a sense of purpose entering my life through that way that I'm slowly maturing more into. It's like a transition. Like I feel like in my 20s, I had to do a lot of things just for myself so that I can outgrow this part and I can serve others.
Hmm.
But I'm trying not to lose the my line here. What I wanted to say with this, basically. So I'm agreeing with that, with everything that you've said on the bigger piece. When I'm now thinking about, so for me as somebody who's making music and also worked in a record label and with artists and creatives of any sort, what always has been some sort of like an issue has been like to combine the passion and the creative flow and force that is within us, people who are creating something, with the nature of the world that we're living in, and that we, sometimes feel like we need to do certain things, and then we or deliver a certain type of work, and write a specific kind of music or take a certain kind of photo or act a certain way. And at the end of the day, you're just like, I don't know, this doesn't really feel good at all. And the whole reason why I'm bringing this up again and again is just because I so much resonated, and I thought it was very interesting what you said at the beginning of the conversation when you said extracted basically that no matter what you are doing with a camera, what motive you're like, if it's weddings, if it's commercial photography, if it's architectural photography, whatever it is, it's still you taking the photo, and therefore it is you bringing yourself into it. And if it feels right, that's what you said, right? If it feels right, then you basically, you push the button and you take the photo. So I would just ask you, through everything that I said, with, for example, commercial projects, with projects where, you have a certain agenda to fulfill and a product to deliver, is that sometimes hard for you, or like how do you feel about that?
Yes. Okay. So with commercial photography, yes, you're fulfilling someone else's expectations of what the image needs to be. Like there's always, all the boxes of things that they're trying to this image into. And I'm really good at just distilling those things down and seeing what that is. Like I know based on all the different requests and all these things, what this image needs to look like. And I can see it from a couple of different angles. It's like you're just problem solving, basically, based on like how they want this thing. They've hired me to then interpret that thing, and knowing how to do that requires first like trusting that whatever you make is going to be good enough for them. Because my standards are way too high. Like it's going to be impossible to make something as good as I want it to be. But making it for someone else, like it's not, I don't think it's that hard in that way. Like, at least commercially speaking, when we talk to, like, look at this TV on this wall in this beautiful living room. Like, you can make I think that I trust myself to make a great, good enough photo of that thing. Now, the difficulty is like the decisions that add up to the image. Like, where do I light this from? Or how is this going to make it look the best or make it feel the right thing? Like, how do I work with these people who maybe speak a different language? Like, how do I respect their ways of working? Like, how do I communicate? Like, I don't know. It's just like commercial photography is really about teamwork to make the thing. And yes, I have to make the image, but it's not hard to make the image. It's hard to get to the image. It's the communication that's involved with everyone. So I like that part of photography because it's kind of like I'm hired kind of as a consultant. I'm outside of their company. They can't tell me, they aren't threatening my benefits and, things and firing me if I don't make a good image. Like, there are constraints and time, like there are time constraints, there are real constraints on a production that we have to work within. And if I can't fulfill them, sometimes, I mean, most of the time, I'm going to fulfill them either way. It's not going to be the best, or it's not going to be the greatest sometimes. Maybe could surprise myself, but it's a process. I don't know. I trust that more than my skill level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and that takes the profession of what you're doing to a whole different level, because to me that sounds like and I know that from working, like I said, in front of the camera, the relationship that I have to a photographer is essential for the outcome of the photo. Like, and this is based on the skill that we both obviously bring to the table, but the photographer oftentimes creates so much. She creates this whole container for a scenery to either flourish and bloom and blossoming, or to really shut down. So I don't know. What do you feel? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's basically me as a person. Like, if I went to a dinner party, or let's just say I go to a small wine bar where all my friends are, and I show up in like a, I don't know, let's just say I'm really stressed, I'm complaining about my day, and I'm kind of loud. Like, I'm sure some people might be like, "Yo, what the fuck's wrong with Colin? Like, he's kind of, affecting the mood. He's kind of like messing in with the party. Like, yo, like, what the hell, dude? Like, it's the same thing on set. Like, you kind of, I like to approach it like actually this conversation. It's, we just, I'm there as a person to make beautiful photos. I don't know how beautiful they can be based on all these things because I've never been through this experience before with you people in this time. Like, you know what I mean? It's let's work on this together. It is a team effort. Like, I just like to, who I am and what I'm going through is not a part of this in some ways. Like, yes, of course, it is like whatever I'm working through or handling, say, I don't know, my house flooded and I'm having to, I don't know, find a Airbnb for days. Which I had to do once being on set. Like, I can't let that be a part of the space. I have a very difficult time, or I have had a hard time, like removing those pieces of my life from the process. But it's helped just like trying to like remaining open to other people and know, and also that like my what I'm feeling and going through is just a small piece of this puzzle. Like, I don't want to mess with the space. I want this to be a communal space where we're all just like trying to enjoy it because it's also fleeting. We're making photography. Like, I should, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's photography at the end of the day. We're not changing the world in right now, maybe, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just about like creating better connections with each other and the things that we're doing, even though work might be annoying and stressful or whatever. Like, I don't know, it just makes the world go around a little bit easier every day.
Mm, yes, yes. I have a quote here. I pulled it out. I don't even know where I pulled it out from, but something that you wrote, which really resonated, and I wanted to read it out. It's very short, and then I wanted to ask you what you meant or how you feel about it now. And it is the concept of I'm getting closer versus I'm getting older. And it was something that you said along those lines, is that you rather say I'm getting closer instead of I'm getting older. What do you mean by that?
Um, I mean that I'm getting to know myself better as the days go on. And, I'm really enjoying that process, which I've been doing my whole life. And as I get older, like it just becomes much more robust and interesting in some ways, being able to see outside myself and seeing who I am in this world. Like, really proud of myself in a lot of ways. Um, and it just makes me excited to like connect with other people who are maybe even younger than me that have reached that kind of awareness and understand themselves in the world. Um, and I want that for my daughters. I want them to. I love when they feel connected and, fulfilled by who they are, proud of what they've done. That's a really cool feeling, I think, to feel as a kid, as anyone. Um, and yeah, despite the difficulties and all the things that we have to go through, I think it's important to celebrate ourselves. So I like saying I'm getting closer rather than I'm getting older, because getting older sometimes sucks.
Mm. Yeah. So do you feel like is there a destination like that you are going closer towards? Is there a completion? Is there a final destination?
I hope not. I don't know. I mean, yes, in some way, yeah, I'm sure there's a, I don't know, not really. It's just the idea that like the story doesn't have to be written in a way. Um, the future is still, I don't know. I mean, I don't know which school of thought you subscribe to, but like determinist thinking is sometimes interesting, like that the future is already written based on historical things, like whatever. I don't believe that's true because the universe is just unbelievably massive and complex. Um, so yeah, and I like the idea of getting closer. It just speaks that story a bit more, um, because there is the nuance and the openness of life and the experience. There's also then who am I in that experience, like identity. Like we all want to know how to feel about that thing or know where we're at about that thing, feel it. We all have a feeling about it. And the ones that I found that serve me more are the ones where I'm like, I feel like I'm where I need to be. Essentially, I'm already here in some ways. Like I'm just getting deeper with a thing. You going out and looking in is a way of saying that's what you're looking at, or that's what you're interested in. The stories, we have all of these histories in our bodies. We have all of these um, futures to live through, and it's really interesting, all of it.
Absolutely. Oh yes. Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, and I feel like everything is depending on the context we're in. We it's all a co-creation with the forces that move around us, with the people, places, and circumstances. And without that, um, I mean, both. Yeah, actually, now that I'm saying that, both. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I feel like there's a never changing uh, core to our human experience that cannot be taken away from us, and we can access that through different modalities and techniques or whatever. And however, I feel like there's so much beauty in a very grounded human experience and a grounded way of living among people, among society, within a culture, and to immerse yourself in it and to see where this maybe a little bit from that deep like spiritual core place, a little bit more sort of like worldly perspective. What does that do to me, and how do I find my way within that ever changing environment? I feel like it's a video game to some degree, and there's just different levels to master. And there's a little bit of play into the occasion, because sometimes life is very serious, I feel like. And so I'm saying this as a reminder to myself, it's just like, this is supposed to be fun. This conversation is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be, fun, and maybe, it'll go deep and maybe it'll be insightful for somebody else. But most of the time I'm just like, I'm just here for this.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that being
I love
said,
that.
I'm thinking about how to land this, how to bring this home, and how to steer the ship into a safe haven now. You were mentioning about like what you're proud of a little bit. It's something that I always ask my guests towards the end. So
Hmm.
yeah, what are you proud of?
Hmm. I'm uh, there's too much sometimes I think about or be proud of. I mean, I'm proud of my wife's persistence in her life. I'm proud of um, choosing to be a parent and still choosing it every day. I'm proud of the who my kids are and like what they're doing, like as any parent would be. Like it's fucking so cool to see your own kids. Um, yeah, I'm proud of myself for not giving up.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, what does your wife? What's something that you feel like sharing about her in this space? Is there something that comes through?
Hmm. Yeah, we're like mirrors of each other, I think, in a lot of ways. And probably people with long relationships would say the same. I she she accepts the world so quickly. I think that's what I would say. She accepts what's happening, the things, she accepts the difficulties of things, and she puts up with a lot of, or I even should, I mean, she's just put up with a lot of things in her life that weren't, you know, for her. It felt like her life was decided for her in a lot of ways. And yeah, I just think I honor that whenever I feel like I'm complaining or unhappy with where I'm at. Uh, you know, just remember that it doesn't, it's not always, it gets like life is really hard sometimes. Um, and I'm living some of the best days of my life right now. So I honor that about my wife. She keeps me clear on that idea, or just, knowing her is important for me.
Yeah, very, very beautiful. She's an inspiration to you as well.
Uh, I mean, of course, talking about that idea, how can she not be? Yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
mean, she's an inspiration to a lot of people. Um, as she's an amazing person. So when someone like she has integrity. She has that thing. She just is who she is. She accepts who she is. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to have, to see, you know. Um, oh man, I got
Yes.
something in my eye now too. Tears and pain. Just kidding.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
I've seen a little bit of I've seen a little bit of work from her, and it's I'm actually, yeah, I can see a lot of um beauty, but also depth within what she's creating.
hmm,
Um, yeah,
hmm. Ugh.
thank yeah, thank you for sharing these things and going there with me. Um, and thank you for this conversation. That was very beautiful, and I've learned a lot, and I think it's wonderful how you approach life and everything that you're doing, and I'm grateful for have had the opportunities to share time and space with you in this capacity.
Wow. Yeah, thank you, Maxi. I feel very honored to be here. Like I said, I really appreciate your openness to just asking such like honest questions and, the curiosity that you bring was really like, a beautiful thing for me to feel today. So yeah, I also am very thankful.
Mm. Is there anything we haven't spoken about that you feel like sharing that you want to bring to this?
Mm.
Anything? Feel complete?
Um, yeah, I mean, I could obviously give you many long-winded answers. I'm working on a book that should be coming out this summer, but we'll see how. Right now, I'm going through like the prototyping phase for some work that I've shown a little bit of. It's not the fairy work. That's another thing that's coming. Working on a show for that with a book possible. So I would share that just to plug my own work that I'm really excited about. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, other than that, I just uh, I'm really excited about life and where it is right now. And I feel like you said some things about the Phoenix Rising, for example, like that just there's such a vision in that kind of thing. And I hope to feel, I felt very similarly, in some ways, like, new growth and new beginnings for lots of things. And I hope that others out there feel the same, or can find something similar in their own lives and their practice. Um, yeah, it just seems like there's a lot of really difficult things we're all working through, but with the right perspective and intentions, I think we can do it. We can figure it out. So,
Yes.
yeah, thank you.
Hey, beautiful listener, you have made it all the way through. And I want to take a moment to say thank you. And you can do me an enormous favor. It's all I'm going to ever ask from you. And that is to go to your podcast app right now. And if you enjoyed the episode, give the podcast a 5-star rating. If you want to write 1-2 words or sentences, even more powerful, even better. Thank you, already in advance. And also, while you're at it, just click on that follow button, on that bell notification, so that you never miss a new episode. All of that just contributes, and it helps me to increase the reach of the podcast. That means I can attract bigger guests, and that means I can deliver more powerful episodes. So it's a tiny thing. I'm only gonna ask this little favor of you ever, not more. 10-15 seconds of your time, a couple of clicks, that's it. Makes a huge difference for me as a creator. So thank you so much.